The Marquesaux, absorbed in their aquatic caresses, have not yet come into the room, where they are awaited by two friends who are also both clients. One of them, a young man in a denim suit, barefoot, slumped on the cushions, lighting a cigarette with a Zippo lighter, is a Swedish musician called Sven Grundtvig, a disciple of Falkenhausen and Hasenfeld, a believer in post-Bavarian music, the composer of constructions as scholarly as they are secretive, the most famous of which, Crossed Words, presents a score curiously similar to a crossword, with the across and down lines corresponding to sequences of chords and the blacked out boxes serving as rests. Sven Grundtvig is nonetheless keen to tackle more popular kinds of music and has just written an oratorio, Proud Angels, with a libretto based on the story of the fall of the angels. This evening's meeting will look at ways of promoting it prior to its first performance at the Debarca Festival. The other is the famous Hortense, a much more curious individual. She is a woman of about 30, with a hard face and anxious eyes. She is squatting by the electric organ and is playing it to herself with the headphones on. She too is barefoot. It must be a house rule to take your shoes off before entering this room, and is wearing long khaki silk bloomers tied beneath the knee and at the waist by white laces decorated with paste diamond tabs, and a short jacket, more of a sort of bolero, made of a multitude of small pieces of fur. Up until 1973, Hortense, it had become customary to write her name in quotation marks, was a man called Sam Horton. He played the guitar and wrote for the Wasps, a small New York group. His first song, Come In Little Nemo, stayed in the top 50 in Variety for 3 weeks, but the ones that followed, Susquehanna Mammy, Slumbering Wabash, Mississippi Sunset, Dismal Swamp, I'm Homesick for Being Homesick, did not live up to expectations, despite their very 1940s charm. So the group vegetated and watched anxiously as bookings got thinner and recording company managers passed on messages that were in a meeting that until in 1973 Sam Horton read by chance in a magazine he was thumbing through in his dentist's waiting room an article on the Indian Army officer who had become a respectable lady. What caught Sam Horton's interest was not so much that a man had been able to change sex, but that the story recounting this unusual experience had been a bestseller. Yielding to the misleading temptation of analogical reasoning, Sam Horton convinced himself that a pop group composed of transsexuals would necessarily top the charts. Obviously, he didn't manage to convince his 4 partners, but the idea went on bothering him. It certainly corresponded to a need of his beyond mere publicity, for he set off alone for Morocco, where he underwent the necessary surgery and endocrine treatments in a specialist clinic. When Hortense returned to the States, the Wasps had in the meanwhile taken on a new guitarist and seemed to be making a go of it, and they refused to take him back. 14 publishers sent him back his manuscript, merely a copy, they said, of a recent hit. It was the start of several months of roughing it, when he had to work mornings as a cleaner in travel agencies to survive. From the depths of misery, to use the term of the potted biography printed on the back of the sleeves of the discs she cut, Hortense began to write songs again, and since no one else wanted to sing them, she began to perform them herself. Her rough and wobbly voice indisputably brought that new sound which the trade is always after, and the songs themselves fitted the anxious expectations of an increasingly agitated audience, for whom Hortense quickly became the incomparable symbol of the fragility of all things. Lime Blossom Lady, a nostalgic ballad of an herbalist shop demolished to make way for a pizzeria, won her in a few days the first of her 59 golden discs. By getting the exclusive European and North African rights for this timid and unstable creature, Philippe Marceau had certainly pulled off the best deal in his as yet brief career, not because Hortense herself, who, with her unending escapades, her breaches of contract, suicide attempts, depressions, court cases, sex parties, and orgies. Her convalescences and miscellaneous manias costs him at least as much as his earnings out of her, but because all of those who aspire to make their name in music hall are now determined to belong to the same agency as Hortense.